Hey, everybody, this is your host, Sophia Nelson, and welcome to the Virginia State Forward Party Fireside Chat. I have a very special guest with me this afternoon. We are, of course, pre recording this. Normally, as you know, we do a live stream, but we have a holiday weekend and we know none of you would show up. So we wanted to pre record. I have with me today the new political director of the Forward Party, the National Forward Party, which is the umbrella of all of us. It's Kayla
Berube.
Ruby. I'm going to be a clown here. She'll get used to me. You guys already know how I behave. But I wanted to have a conversation with Kayla because she's going to be the person in charge of the politics, the grassroots, the state level coordination with national, the local level. She has a big job ahead of her. And Kayla, my first question to you is, first of all, what drew you to politics? And what drew you to the Forward Party? And tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing and why you think it matters so much right now, given the state of our politics.
Sure. And thanks so much for having me, Sophia. This is a really exciting time to be kind of dropping in and giving an update on everything that's going on with the Forward Party. So I'm happy to be here today. Um, so, when I was growing up, I always say I was a little bit of a weird kid. I grew up in a union firefighter household, about as blue collar as it gets. And
Right, household?
Um, so I've been an unaffiliated voter my whole life,
Wow.
and I believe my entire family has
Ooh.
also been. But in Massachusetts,
Impressive.
that is kind of the norm. And, I used to sit at the kitchen table and listen to my dad tell us stories about the militia that would practice up the street at Old Common in our town during the Revolutionary War. I would listen to the stories that he would tell us about, both of my grandfathers fighting in World War II. And their personal experiences. And so I kind of learned at a really early age, not only our nation's history, but also, how often in that history the really transformative moments had been accomplished by, a relatively small but determined, dedicated, stubborn, and effective group of people. And in the context of, civic duty and how that translates into politics, I always found that that was something that resonated with me, that I felt particularly connected to. And so I've been, working in politics and on campaigns primarily for Republicans in almost always in very deep blue districts and states. We're talking Connecticut, Massachusetts, Oregon, California, Hawaii. So
So I'm thinking what all of you are thinking. Where is the accent at? Where is the accent? What was the cob? Why aren't we talking funny?
yeah, I've lived all over the country.
Okay,
So
so you didn't
over the
carry the
years,
accent. Okay, fair enough.
it comes
I know, like when you go home, like I grew up in South Jersey. Oh my God, what happens to my language when I go home? It totally changes. South Philly, South Jersey is a definite dialect. You ever hear Chris Matthews on TV?
yeah.
That's it. It's not a great one. Anyway, so finish what you were saying. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, the early years of my career working on those campaigns, working for state parties, I was constantly tasked with finding these kind of non-traditional coalitions and identifying folks that we could work with within the communities, within the districts that I was working in, who, were willing to reach across the aisle. And in many cases, identifying where there were opportunities to build and grow our campaigns in kind of even non-political ways. What was most important to the community, what issues were resonating with voters at that point in time. And so I didn't always necessarily even see things through a super partisan lens.
Mhm.
That shifted over the years, of course. And so,
Well, I mean, I think what you're describing though is a perfect background for the job you have, right? Because you don't come to this necessarily as somebody who grew up in, say, strong union Democrat household where it was like, this is the way we do it, this is the way we think, this is the way we vote, or a Republican household. segue that into where we find ourselves now. We're living in a very interesting moment, and the Forward Party seems to be sitting on the precipice of greatness, if you will. And I say that because poll after poll after poll shows that Americans want a third party. Tell me, how do we connect the dots and lead us into the 2025 races as well as 2026, and where you see Forward playing a role and how you see this all?
Sure, yeah. One of the fears that I live with every day is that the larger movement around us is picking up momentum and may start moving a little bit quicker than we have the infrastructure to handle.
Good problem.
It is a great problem. I always say in politics and in life, there are so many things that are outside of our control. And we have to maintain focus simply on the things that are within our control. But it's really important to have those things that are outside of our control moving in the right direction, right? I have certainly seen over the years, candidates or campaigns who, by the book really ran well-run campaigns. They executed flawlessly, but the timing wasn't right. That grassroots, what the voters were looking for in that moment just simply was not aligned.
Put a pin in that. Oprah would say that's an aha moment. Everybody's talking about this Massachusetts Senate race with Susan Collins. Maine. I apologize, not Massachusetts. Maine.
Massachusetts used to be part of
yes,
Maine,
a long time ago. But you're right. Maine is what I meant to say. And the guy who's the oyster guy.
Yeah.
I'm calling him the oyster guy because that's what's going to resonate. And the timing, Collins has been a problem in terms of consistency. She comes from a very liberal, centrist type of state, Republic, come on, Margaret Chase Smith. It doesn't get any better. A Republican with a conscience, the Declaration of Conscience. And Susan Collins has been flippy flop, to be generous. And here's this guy, they're talking about the governor running. They talked about Susan Rice running. Big names that can raise a lot of bucks, but my money's on this oyster guy for the reasons that you state.
Yeah. So something that I've learned over the years is that, at the end of the day, politics is just completely about people. And I think that is important to remember.
You think even now it is?
Yes.
Really?
And I think that's why we're seeing this friction with the growing movement of unaffiliated and independent voters who are fleeing these extreme partisan parties because they've lost sight of what really matters. And voters are looking for candidates like the oyster guy in Maine. And I have to admit, I didn't dive deep into his politics or his platform. I know he's running as a Democrat. But
it's impressive.
His announcement video was
awesome.
It resonates with people, right?
Yes.
Because he comes across as someone who is very relatable, who understands,
hardworking.
And that's what voters, when voters think about politics, they don't digest it in the way that, pundits and politicos, even like ourselves, might. They're thinking about, how do I make my life or my family's lives better? How does this help my community? And currently, neither party is making that, priority number one. And I think that's where we'll start seeing voters drawn to these candidates who resonate with them, who understand that daily struggle and are willing to buck their own party and say, I'm going to do what's right.
Right. Let's talk about 2025 and the legislative races. Virginia has an off year. New Jersey has an off year. Who else has?
Can I just correct you really quickly?
Yeah.
Because I had the pleasure to meet someone recently in my travels in Colorado. And we always refer to off years.
Yeah.
And this woman corrected me and said, there are no off years anymore, honey.
Well,
they are odd years.
That's absolutely a better way to say it, because I think democracy is truly in a very precarious state right now. So every election counts and you better get out and vote. But back to the 2025 legislative and gubernatorial races, New Jersey and Virginia, everybody will be watching them. Tell me, is Forward going to have candidates in either New Jersey or Virginia? And are you guys positioning in those states, and talk about your predictions for what those state elections will be about? Will they be a referendum on Trump?
Mm. I think historically, yes. The immediate odd year elections and then midterm elections generally serve as a referendum on whomever is in power. And we've seen those historical trends and how they typically play
Mhm,
out,
mhm.
which certainly spells trouble for the Republicans in 2026. In 2025, we are absolutely running a handful of legislative candidates, both in New Jersey and Virginia. As well as several down ballot races. So, local city or county elections in New Jersey and Virginia, and in other states across the country. There are also some local elections in other states, and we will have upwards of 50 candidates on the ballot
Nice.
in 2025 that are forward endorsed.
Are there any other elections that I'm not talking about that are happening around the country in 2025, like in other places?
Yeah, so there is a special election in Tennessee.
Mm.
That is kind of a recent development just over these summer months with the resignation of Mark Green.
Mhm.
And we're kind of waiting to see how that
The
shapes up.
congressional race?
hmm and
Yeah, that was very abrupt and sudden.
but we love a good special
Yeah.
election. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, there is almost always an election happening. And so I'm really fortunate in my position to have insight into a lot of these. And some of them are at a very local level, but they are really key indicators of what is happening on the ground
Mm.
and what voters are thinking and feeling. So I think that's something to watch as we see how the 2025 races play out in November, and that will kind of really guide a lot of the strategies heading into the.
So let's talk about the midterms. Talk to me about, again, forward strategy. Are you recruiting candidates for 26 now? Any places you're looking at in particular that you think we have a real shot of picking up a member of Congress, a senator, etc.?
Yeah, I try not to get too ahead of myself, but
No, you don't have to
uh,
call names or anything, but
Uh, we have had a really robust, I call it like our inbound pipeline of interest of candidates who proactively are connecting with us and raising their hands and saying, I would like to run for election.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, folks don't know which office they actually should run for.
Mm-hmm.
But we as an organization, forward strategy has always been bottom up, not top down,
Mm-hmm.
right? We are not built
What does
around
that mean? Break that down for our listeners.
for me, it means a true authentic grassroots strategy. That means every local race matters. It means building out the actual durable infrastructure of state party organizations in each of our active states where there is a volunteer network. There are executive committees and
Mhm.
state committees who serve as a resource on the ground, are plugged into their communities, are tuned into exactly what's going on in their given states.
Let's put a
And
pin in that because that's important for those of you watching us in the Commonwealth, but also nationally, because I think all of us state forward parties share our content. This fireside chat thing I started has caught on with other state parties. I love it. I feel so excited by that. But let's talk about that. How is Forward going about building that grassroots movement, though? Because we started the conversation kind of talking about the moment we're in. And the polling data shows people want a third party option. I think we probably need to go back and explain that Ford is actually trying to build a third party. So it's not an independent, like just people running for office. Talk about that a little bit because I think people don't really get that.
yeah, so and this was something that I believe in wholeheartedly because coming up through the kind of traditional and legacy party
Mhm.
system as working on Republican campaigns.
Mhm.
I previously worked at the Republican National Committee. I have seen at the national level and at the state level and the local level what purpose the party infrastructure serves, and that is everything from registering voters, um, providing constant messaging through media and communications, identifying prospective supporters for campaigns. And they do that through maintaining a national or state voter file, which has all kinds of data points on issues and candidates who voters support, and when they turn out to vote. And from that, that's where all of these strategies come from. Some folks who are watching this might understand in this day and age the digital side of party
Which is why
infrastructure.
we're doing this.
So, candidates rely on blue or win red,
Mhm.
and those are really data sharing functions of the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. Um,
Does Forward have something like that? Are you trying to develop something like
So
that?
we are working on developing all of the traditional party resources, so that candidates who want to run for office and serve their communities and simply be beholden to two things: the Constitution and their constituents, will
Amen.
no longer have to be beholden to these legacy parties in order to access the tools and resources that they need in order to get elected to the
Yeah, I
place they
mean,
serve.
listen, look, personal point of privilege here. I mean, know that I was considering putting my name on the ballot and thought about it and the money that's required. I want to talk about that. Doesn't mean I'll never do it, but I think that that is always a concern whether you're running as a Democrat, as a Republican, or as a Forward Party member. Let's talk about money and politics for a moment. I know for me, it was kind of the thing that I said, yeah, I got to spend 90% of my time raising money and then I got to try to campaign, I think I'm gonna pass. And I think a lot of people are turned off by the money. How do we deal with that? Any thoughts on how Ford is trying to, because Ford is basically a startup. It's the only way I know how to
Yes.
explain it, right? And then you've got a series of startups in every state that we have a state party in. What are you doing to try to mitigate the money thing? And is that how the grassroots piece really ties in?
Yeah. So I'm going to come at this question from a slightly different angle because
Okay.
I know it's kind of been top of mind for a lot of folks who have been watching what's going on at the national level,
Mhm.
either in the 2024 elections or recently, where there is such an emphasis put on money. And we kind of have been put under the assumption that one single billionaire can really be influential and
Yep.
can make anything happen.
Mhm.
And
And how
I-
many billionaires are there? I mean, there's like 500 of them, I think, in the United States. And so if you took the 500 billionaires, that doesn't get you anywhere near the number of voters,
right.
districts, and,
Yeah. I
offices.
So here's the thing about party building. There is no silver bullet. And money is a need to have,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
No doubt.
because everything that we do in today's day and age costs money, right?
Mhm.
Everything that I listed off before, whether it's access to data or digital tools or even just travel, like those things do cost money on campaigns. But it's not everything. And there really is no silver bullet for one billionaire to come in here and just rain cash down on us and solve all of our challenges that we face as a new party in obtaining ballot access, in recruiting new people, in connecting people, educating people, and providing those
So
those
you don't see it as
resources.
an obstacle, as a deal breaker. That, in other words, you know, they released the FEC statements this morning for the Democrats and Republicans. You probably saw the same thing
Mhm.
I did. The Democrats are absolutely behind or even, which is interesting. Um, but it was millions of dollars. 40 million on hand, 10 million raised in the, I mean, that's a lot of money.
It is. It is. One thing that I think Forward does a great job of is because we don't have, a billionaire or, a handful of really powerful people that the party is beholden to.
Mhm.
our money is sourced from so many different
Right.
individuals who
Right.
truly believe in this cause.
Yeah.
But it
That's
provides
important.
us the flexibility to do the work that we need to do
Mhm.
without having to satisfy
An agenda.
and yes,
Yeah. I
exactly.
like that. So, recruiting, money, the politics of the day. Let's talk about that. What are you seeing on the ground as you travel around the country and you talk to prospective candidates or people who want to be donors or people who want to host events or whatever? What would you say is the biggest driving factor that you see that kind of connects the dots for how you see forward being propelled, no pun intended, forward?
Sure. I think in my conversations with candidates, specifically, it's really folks who are recognizing this moment in time. And it's kind
You
of
talking about what are you talking about?
it's
What's the moment?
it's the question of if not now, when. The
Okay.
the stakes are so high because Congress has become so dysfunctional and our state legislatures.
Democracy may be under threat a little bit. A little bit. Exactly.
I don't like to sound alarmist,
No,
but
we are the third rail out there, if you will, so we can kind of say what the other ones won't.
yeah, yeah, it is the stakes have never been higher,
Right.
but I am energized every day by
See?
seeing the number of Americans who, at various different levels of involvement, that we get to interact with, are acknowledging that something has to be done, right? And the only way that our government functions appropriately is with an educated and engaged electorate,
Absolutely.
right?
And checks and balances and guardrails and all the things that seem to have fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, but it's up to us to protect.
I love that it's up to us, and I like that phrase. We'll revisit that in another time. But Kayla, I like to keep these kind of tight, these fireside chats, because I think people get the most down. Let's wind this down with a final question. I'm going to give you the last word to talk about anything you want to talk about that you feel we've missed. But I think the big question that I've gotten from a lot of people is, okay, Sophia, forward is a great idea. And yes, we all agree the two-party system is broken. But how in the hell do you guys compete with the parties that have been around 100 plus years? They've got the money, they've got the elected officials. You're saying grassroots is what I heard you talk about repeatedly in this conversation. What is kind of if you were to summarize forward, get a 30-second pitch about what it is and why people that are engaged, but how we're engaging other people, what would you say is going to be that breakthrough, in your opinion, that really gets forward where it wants to go, whether that's going to be in 26, 28, 32, whatever? How do you compete with the big boy?
Yeah. So, honestly, with smart strategy, in
Smart strategy, first one.
in the midterms, we are going to provide voters a choice at the ballot box, especially
Choice two.
in districts where they have not been provided any
So where it's
choice.
just been the primary winner wins and that's it. There's neither a Democrat that runs seriously or a Republican.
And so in those
Good.
districts, we are actually not the third party. In many cases, we are the second party.
To be the second.
So a smart strategy is leading us to a handful of key districts and areas where we will build.
Providing choice. What else? Give me more.
We will build a truly bottoms up strategy where we will run. Uh, I don't want to say slate because I think that
I respect.
kind of commits us to
So you're
everything.
saying
But
that your focal point is going to be on city councils, mayors, um, legislative races versus not that you don't want to run U.S. Senate candidates or House candidates, but that's a bigger nut to crack. So you're going to try to work your way up. Is that what I hear you saying? Or governors?
Yeah. So part of the requirement of becoming an FEC, Federal Election Commission recognized political party at the national level is running candidates for federal office.
Yep.
And in 2026, we will target a handful of key congressional districts.
Targeting.
But it
Targeting.
but it
Smart
won't.
strategy.
But it's not just that's not our only focal point. We will build a full team.
Now let's break that down. So the FEC has requirements in order for you to become like the Democrats and like the Republicans. I hate to say it that way. So if you have 10 states, let's say in 26, and you run somebody for Senate, somebody, a couple people for House, you have to hit a certain number of states before you hit a threshold, or is it just one? How does that work? Sounds complicated.
It is very complicated.
Sounds complicated.
And it's specifically designed that way by the parties in power, right? The FEC is comprised of Republicans and Democrats who
No
govern that.
independence.
And so
Wow.
they make the rules, and those are the rules that we have to play by. They are intentionally designed to lock us out of the system and make our make my life difficult. And we are up to the challenge, and we are going to check all of the boxes.
What
of
about
those
ranked choice
requirements.
voting? There's a lot of alliance with the Forward Party and ranked choice voting, and things like that. Is that kind of the way forward here? That you see the gerrymandering war that's going on in Texas and California. Again, carving out seats to make sure a certain number of Democrats or a certain number of Republicans are guaranteed election. Again, leaving independents out in the wind. Talk to me about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, at the Forward Party, we support anything that makes elections more accessible and open and transparent. We believe that the people should choose their elected officials and not the other way around, which is what we're seeing in the gerrymandering nonsense, because it is nothing but a back and forth between these two parties with absolutely no consideration for the benefit of the American people and the voters that they serve. But ranked choice voting, open primaries, there are many, you know, structural reforms that can create an environment where the our elected officials are more responsive because there is greater participation from these voters. You mentioned earlier that so many of these really key critical races that might determine control of Congress or a state legislature are decided during primary
Hmm.
elections by the most rabid members
Yep,
of their party bases.
that's what we have now.
And by the time the general election comes around, everything's already been decided because they draw these districts in a way that whichever party is in control of it retains control of it,
Hmm.
and it is intentionally designed to lock out competition. And that's where we aim to insert the Forward Party and provide people more choice and advocate for many of these structural reforms that will make our government and our democracy function better.
So I'm going to give you the last word, and I mentioned this before. If you were right now and you had a minute or two to pitch a Forward Party to people who are completely turned off by the two-party system, who believe that their country is not recognizable anymore. I was a lifelong Republican. Moderate me, worked for Christy Whitman, Pete Wilson, people like that. Those Republicans do not
No,
exist
they
at
don't.
all anymore. They're gone. Fiscal conservatism, small government, strong national defense, NATO allied, that's going out the window apparently. That party's over. You were to make an appeal to people like me who obviously came over to Ford and others, what would be your pitch about why it's worth the investment personally, shoe leather, donating, etc.? Why bother if the other guys seem to have a market on and a complete ownership of the space?
Yeah, I would say to anyone who feels the way that you described, honestly, that was the way that I felt for several
Mhm.
years
Mhm.
prior to joining Forward. I would say just give it a try. If you want to have inspiring conversations with people who really care about our country, join us. You can go to forwardparty.com. We will have a human being reach out to you and have a conversation with you and
Probably one
ask.
of us.
Yeah, and ask how you'd like to get involved. There are so many ways to get involved in this movement. If you have served in leadership capacities in the past and you've maybe toyed with the idea of running for public office, just give us a call, drop us a line on the website. We have members of our team who every single day are having conversations with folks who are saying, I would love to run for office, but I can't get involved with this partisan nonsense.
It's
We
crazy.
have a home for you
Yes,
and
we
we
do.
will help you. And we are welcoming of folks from, obviously we come from some Republican
We've
backgrounds
been there.
here. But yes, we have from all walks of life. We have many prominent Democrats. Actually, just last week, or maybe it was the week before, we were at the National Conference of State Legislators, and very soon we'll be announcing a new Democrat state rep who will be joining us. So
Mhm.
this is I like to say a lifeboat, built for everyone. Come on in. We're here to catch you. And we're here to turn some of that frustration into some real positivity to impact lasting.
In Virginia, we've had some interesting news. The mayor of Farmville is an
Yes.
independent, and he's going to be working with us. That's what I'll say till the official announcement comes out. And then, you brought up a great point that I thought about running for office and how many people would love to, but they're terrified. We have a wonderful legislative candidate in Virginia's 72nd district, Kristen Ferry. And, first time candidate, former military officer, engineer, farmer. So she comes from that Chesterfield, Amelia area in the Commonwealth. And, she just got the Police Benevolence Association endorsement. The forward candidate got that. That's massive because she showed up, she did her homework, and she came across as earnest and conscientious. And then when they looked at her background, I'm like, this is a serious person. She's a farmer, she's an engineer, she was a military officer. For her to get that nod is unbelievable. And trust me, the incumbent is not happy about it. I happen to know who the incumbent is,
Well,
and
and
boy, they're not.
look, a lot of these incumbents have been there for a very long time, and they become complacent. They know that they have the advantage,
Mhm.
and that is what I love most about our candidates. And Kristen is an excellent
She's
candidate. We're
wonderful.
so excited to have her on the ballot this year. But our candidates take nothing for granted. They are the ones who are pounding the pavement. They are the ones who are
They don't.
showing up in their communities because they don't have the luxury of taking anything for granted. They are going to work to earn
You
every
know what?
single
Kristen
vote.
was telling me about when she was getting the signatures that you have to get on the ballot, that she went to some doors that were real MAGA, pro Trump. And she said, they looked at her, they listened. He said, I'm going to sign your petition because you asked me. Now think of it. They told her, I don't know if I'm going to vote for you, but that you showed up at my door and you asked me, I'll sign your petition.
Yeah, and that's something that we do really great here at Forward is we are a party of inclusivity, right? And I just had a meeting with my team earlier today in which I said we need to make the ask. People go where they are invited and they stay
Mhm,
where they feel
mhm,
welcome. And that
mhm.
is what we aim to provide for voters, for curious, potential supporters, for folks who want to run for office or serve in some sort of leadership capacity with our state teams. There are so many ways to help. You can get involved even just sitting in the comfort of your own home behind your computer screen.
Mhm.
If you don't like talking to people, we've got things that you can do too. But if you're like Sophia and I and you like to
We like to
gab,
talk.
we've got plenty of work for
Yes,
you.
we do. We do.
But there are so many ways to get involved. So I really encourage people to visit forwardparty.com and fill out our volunteer form and just have a conversation. If you decide that you don't like us, we won't make you hang out.
No, and if you are in a state where we don't currently have a chapter or an affiliated party, start one.
Yes.
Work with us, start one. I'm going to end here. We are heading into America 250 next year. The country will have its 250th sesquicentennial birthday. I don't think that's by accident that in year 249, we're having some trouble. We're struggling a little bit. We're having an identity crisis. We're testing the guardrails of the Constitution. They're being tested. Remember how this country started as she began talking about coming from that New England area and growing up there where the Revolutionary War was fought. These were ragtag farmers and merchants. Watch The Sons of Liberty. Watch John Adams. Two of the best movies you can watch that I think are very historically accurate. I wrote a book called E Pluribus One, reclaiming our founders' vision for a united America, not a divided one, a united America. It started because regular people like us and you got up and said, we're not paying tariffs and taxes on teas. We're not beholden to a mad king. We're not doing it. Boy, does just saying.
History repeats itself.
So I'm saying you can make a difference. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. That's us. Ayla, thanks for joining me. I love, we will do this again and again and again. This was the first time we've done this kind of sitting with each other in the same place. We usually do it virtually. So I like it. Thank you.
We'll get you out and about.
I'm going to try. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Bye bye now.